Hey guys, welcome back to RHR Jen. I'm so glad you're here. You are back for part two. It's so good. I'm enjoying this so much, and it seems like you guys are too, based on your responses. But we're on part two of the Justin Baldoni Blake Lively legal showdown, and I can't wait to continue this with you. Thank you to everybody who watched part one. If you didn't see it, go back and watch. But in part two, we're going to continue to unpack this explosive legal showdown and talk about the allegations, the lawsuits, the drama, the claims, the accusations of defamation, things, all that stuff. And again, here back to help me explain this and break it all down and does such a wonderful job. I want to welcome back John Witherspoon. He's a lovely attorney out of the DC area. He's so great. Thank you so much, John, for your time and for breaking this all down for us and answering our questions. And I cannot wait to continue on this conversation. It's been so good so far. I'm really enjoying this, and I can't wait to keep going. As more stuff about this case comes out, I want to have John back and further discuss because I'm completely captivated by it, and it seems like you guys are too. So let me know your thoughts. Let me know your questions. Thank you guys so much for being here. I appreciate it. Now let's continue on with part two of the Blake Lively, Justin Baldoni of it all. Thanks for being here. Honk honk, everyone. So the next question somebody had for you was, so Blake was the first to bring, we kind of talked about this a little bit, but if you want to expound upon it a little bit, Blake was the first to bring the suit against Justin. She has the burden of proof I just realized it autocorrected in proving that he was the one who defamed or slandered her. There's a countersuit, so they both have to prove it, right? I think you basically answered this, but
Correct.
okay. Got it. Okay. I was waiting to see if you said more. Okay, we're good. Okay.
No. Yep.
In the US, let's see. Oh, sorry. The next question that was asked is, in the US, when people sue for hundreds of millions, how do they pay and how much do the lawyers get out of it? How does that work?
That's a great question. There are two ways for lawyers to get paid in a case like this. One of them involves just an hourly rate,
Okay.
which, given the caliber of the lawyers that are involved, could be well over $1,000 an hour. In some cases, potentially $2,000. It just depends on what what the nature of the case is and what's been agreed to. The other way for lawyers to get paid is to have a contingency arrangement, which basically means they hitch their wagon to the outcome of the case. And if the case turns out favorably for their client, then they take a cut of the award that is paid to the client. And if the client loses the case, lo and behold, they get zero,
Okay, gotcha.
which can be a really painful outcome. Again, you already mentioned that this case is going to go to trial over a year from now. So there's already been a substantial amount of work that's been done, and there will be a lot more work that needs to be done. But the nice thing, though, again, is it certainly incentivizes the lawyer to do the best possible job, to leave no stone unturned, not only on behalf of the client, but also on their own behalf, to pay the bills. So then the question comes up, okay, well, how much of a cut would the lawyer take? The typical cut for a contingent arrangement in a case like this would be 1/3, but it can also be done on a sliding scale, typically between, say, 20 or 25% and maybe 40%.
Okay.
And the reason that scale slides around, part of it has to do with the lawyer's confidence in the ability to win the case. And it also can, the point at which the case, if let's say there's a settlement that is reached before there's a jury verdict, okay, well, if the case has to go to trial and the lawyer has to do a lot of trial preparation and so forth, then the contingency fee for a settlement at that point is likely to be higher than it would be if, let's say, next week the lawyers and the parties are able to settle the case. Then you end up with a lower contingent payment as part of the settlement. So it's a roll of the dice.
Yeah.
And you wonder why lawyers often drive really expensive cars and have multiple homes and yachts and everything else. Well, this is part of the way that all plays out. So
Mm-hmm.
as far as um, how do you pay, let's
Mm-hmm.
say there's $100 million judgment in the
Mm-hmm.
case, how do you end up paying that? Even in the Depp case, for instance, okay, Amber Heard owed Johnny Depp, at least as far as the jury verdict was concerned, I think it was $10 million. Well, that's a heavy lift, even for somebody who is on a Hollywood salary. The answer to that question is, in some cases, you don't get paid. You can't get
Mm-hmm.
blood out of a turnip. If the person does not have $100 million in assets,
Mm-hmm.
or they don't have $100 million worth of insurance to cover them in the case of a case of defamation or something, then you kind of have to just say, suck it up. Well, we did the best we could.
Mm-hmm.
We were awarded $100 million. We only got $30 million because
Mm-hmm.
that's all the person had. And, you might enter an arrangement where they would give, say, $30 million now, and then they would say, okay, well, the next time you do a movie and you're offered whatever, $20 million as your salary for this movie, 10 of it has to go toward this settlement. And as I said, there's insurance that in some cases becomes relevant.
Mm-hmm.
It just depends on what the parties work out. You might recall again that Johnny Depp ultimately told Amber Heard, I know the jury awarded $10 million, but you know what? I'm only going to take $1 million from you.
Mm-hmm.
And I think even that he gave to charity. And I'm sure that he paid his lawyers because they would have been insistent on that. Understandably so,
Sure.
and pay the costs of litigation, the hotel and the airfare and all this other stuff and rental cars. But you can't take money from someone that does not exist.
Sure. That makes sense. Yeah.
Same thing. I mean, just think about it in terms of your car insurance. If you get in an
Mm-hmm.
accident and there's no fault insurance and there's all these other
Mm-hmm.
ramifications, but at the end of the day, you can't get more money than the person has.
Sure. I gotcha. That makes sense.
But it's a great question.
Yeah, it is a good question. I didn't really think about it. Let's see. Oh, another question that somebody had is Taylor Swift has been mentioned. Now, in case you guys don't know, in the past, it's been shown that Blake and Taylor are good friends. There's now wondering if they've since gone their separate ways. But regardless, there's a history there.
Mhm.
And Taylor Swift has been mentioned in text and I guess in paper. I honestly don't know how she was mentioned, but she's been brought up. So since she's mentioned in evidence, can either party call her as a witness?
Isn't that a good question?
I'm smiling because I was thinking of the Depp stuff. Go for it. Yes.
Very, very juicy. You might recall, again, speaking of the Depp trial, there were rumors that Elon Musk might end up showing up in the courtroom because he had dealings with Amber Heard, and he might be able to offer some perspective on some of these issues. And of course, he was not ultimately involved in the case. But in this case, if Taylor Swift has information, she can absolutely be involved in the case against her will.
Mm-hmm.
And she could be deposed at a minimum, or I guess at a minimum, she could be required to answer some interrogatories, answer written questions. She could be deposed.
Mm-hmm.
She could be called to the witness stand,
Mm-hmm.
and she
I was
would not
thinking
have
of
a lot of.
Kate Moss. Uh-huh.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Now the Kate Moss thing was a little bit different, but that's basically what happened. If you have a nexus, a point of relevance or a point of contact with the case, and it relates to a question that is material in the case, yes, she could be called. And interesting that you said that, oh, all of a sudden she's distanced herself. Well, if in fact that's the case, sorry, it's a little bit too late.
Yeah.
You're
I would assume that's a public opinion reason to distance yourself. It's not a legal
yes,
reason
that's
to.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah, she might have said, gee, this is a little bit too big a hairball for me. I don't want to get
Right.
involved in it.
Uh-huh.
And I don't want to risk my reputation and so forth. But entirely possible that she could get a subpoena and be ordered to show up in court or to give a deposition or answer interrogatories, turn over text records, emails, phone call logs, any of that stuff.
That makes sense.
It could be very interesting.
Yeah, it will be, because I think that's the thing is they talk about their celeb group of friends and stuff. So I'm interested in who
Mhm.
would be called to that. And then a side note, when you talk about answering interrogatories, I kind of always smirk like Amber Heard, because every time I go back to that, to me was some of the most interesting part of the case with Johnny Depp. I just always go back to that case. I find it fascinating. When we saw her on those tapes answering those questions,
Yes.
like
Not a good look.
no,
Not a good look.
you're not going to win anybody over by answering like that. Even if you're annoyed to be there, you can't act like a jerk. You can,
Yeah.
but stuff like that happens. Like,
Yep.
not good.
Yep. And that's a really good point. And I think it probably was overlooked. And it's very easy for her to sit down in this conference room and be very smug looking and very cocky looking. And the lawyer just, of course, casually says, "Oh, by the way, Ms. Heard, there's a video camera. We just want to make sure that we get this all down on, we don't want there to be any confusion later on. So we're going to videotape this if you don't mind." "Oh, yeah, fine, whatever." And then she goes on and behaves the way she behaved. And lo and behold, guess what they've trotted out in court is the video of her deposition. And boy, she did not look good. And incidentally, I mean, that goes back to there's a notion, again, to bring up the OJ trial. There's a concept called jury nullification, which basically says the jury saying, "You know what, we heard all these facts. We think OJ's guilty, but for whatever reason, we're going to find him innocent." And it's not it's a lot of people have a lot of issues with that, because basically the jury went against the instructions of the judge, and it's not supposed to happen like that. But anyway, I've always thought there's a corollary to jury nullification, and that's what I deem jury affirmation, which basically says, for instance, in the case of Amber Heard, you know what? You may have said some things that refuted the allegations that Johnny Depp made against you, but we think you're such a jerk that we're going to kind of stick it to you. And we're no longer going to give you the benefit of the doubt, or we're going to shift the calculus in terms of, beyond a reasonable doubt, preponderance of the evidence, all that. We're going to put our own little spin on that, and we're going to basically assign some hate points, for lack of a better way of, we're going to throw in a hate factor when we deliberate and when we come up with this stuff, because we just don't like you. So anyway, that's always a possibility. And certainly Amber Heard and her depositions came across as very unlikable, very smug, very arrogant. And when a jury looks at that, and that can't help be a factor in the jury's deliberations. And it's entirely possible in a case like this as well. So we'll see.
To bring it full circle, and this is more of the court of public opinion, I don't know if you've kept up with it, but that's been a big thing with Blake Lively, is people keep bringing old interviews up and showing, I mean, basically, I don't know how else to say it, what an asshole she is to people when they ask her questions, and she's just,
yeah. It's the Rachel Zegler kind of a problem.
That's it. That's exactly it.
Where, we don't really care how great an actress you are. We think you're a jerk, and we're not going to go shell out $20 to see you in a picture and put money in your wallet, because we just don't like you. I don't care how good your movie is.
That's right. But I would think, though, that again, it gets people thinking like, whoa, if she's a jerk here, I bet she was a jerk on set,
Absolutely. Absolutely. And that's why we subpoena people to come to court and tell their story in person, because there is that sort of sniff test aspect to them. It's like, we just don't believe you, or we just don't like you. And not liking somebody, again, is the believability. Absolutely. That is totally fair game. Sure. The likability, that's a very gray area, but human nature being what it is, you can't tell me that the likability factor doesn't have an impact. It's again, it's the Dr. Spiegel versus Dr. Shannon Curry in the Depp trial. Here's one of them is very polished, very attractive,
You're talking about
very
Spiegel right
articulate.
now.
What's that?
I said you're talking about Spiegel, right? When you say attractive and polished. I'm just kidding.
Yeah, just kidding is right. And then you have Dr. Spiegel, who, his hair is a mess. He comes across as very flippant, very cocky, and it's like, well, gee, why is that guy behaving like that? What has he got to hide? I don't care for what he has to say. It's just human nature. So
You're right. You're right. Absolutely. Can I be Dr. Curry and you be Dr. Spiegel in this analogy?
Sorry.
You have to mess your hair up and
Yeah.
off into space and smack your gums around and look at the judge crazy to be that. I just like the idea of being Dr. Curry.
Yeah. No, Dr. Curry is about as perfect a witness as you'll ever see, I think, in my opinion.
Yeah, she's amazing.
She just talk about somebody that checks all the boxes. And I think I mentioned when we were talking about her a couple of weeks ago, I just remember I was sitting on the end of the row, the seats, the bench. It's like a church pew kind of thing. Of course, this is another thing that's amazing about the American judicial system. I don't know how they do it, but they can come up with the hardest benches to sit on in court. I mean, really, you talk about like, oh, could they have come up? I don't know what kind of wood they used, but it is hard like a rock. And anyway, so I just mentioned that as an aside. It seems to be universal. I've never heard of a courtroom that actually has comfortable seating for the members of the gallery. But anyway, I remember sitting on the end of a row, and the witnesses were out in the hall, and they called for Dr. Curry, and okay, we'll send somebody out to go find Dr. Curry wherever she is, because she's basically been in the equivalent of the soundproof booth, because she's not allowed to come in. She's not allowed to hear other people's testimony, because that might then influence her testimony. So she needs to be someplace where she can't hear what's going on. Anyway, they sent somebody out. She came in, the door opened in the back of the courtroom. After 2 minutes of waiting, here comes Dr. Curry, and everybody was just like, wow. She just, she was wearing this clothing that was sort of flowing behind her, and this blonde hair. Just everybody just sort of gasped and said, we're already impressed. She hasn't even opened her mouth. We haven't even seen her face yet. She hasn't even opened her mouth. And she's walking, where all we can see is the side and the back of her head. Haven't even seen her face yet, but we already really like her.
Yeah.
That's
absolutely.
a factor. It really is.
Yeah, because just like you said, Dr. Spiegel, he didn't even have to open his mouth. He just sat there, and you just think this guy's a lunatic.
And you know what? That's as much the fault of the lawyer as it is for as for Dr. Spiegel. Somebody should have told him, "Hey, bud, go in the men's room and comb your hair. Find yourself a mirror and organize yourself before you come in here. You cannot go up on the stand and cannot walk in front of the jury looking like that."
No.
And it's a weird conversation to have too. But it's like, look, and again, I mean, irony. Same thing as on a movie set. Wait a minute. Stop. Where's the makeup person? Or so-and-so's hair looks a mess. Get somebody in here with a brush or a comb. Fix this.
Exactly. Yeah. You're right. Even details. Yeah. Now you got my wheels turning. Like, there's gonna have to be a hair person. Nope. It needs to look like she just climbed out of bed. Like mess it up for you. Like details like that you have to think about. Wow, that's interesting. Yeah.
Well, and we talked about Amber Heard's hairstyle too. I mean, again, we're getting off track here, but it's a relevant point.
Yeah.
If you come into the courtroom looking like you're ready to go into an MMA fight with your hair all tied up around the sides of your head, that's a different optic than if somebody comes in like with their hair looking like yours, Jen, or as I've mentioned, when Amber Heard went on the NBC Dateline show, and she looked fantastic. She had a very soft look. Her makeup was different. Her hair was different. And she was a much more sympathetic individual than when she was in court in Fairfax, where she just looked like she had this toughness to her, which is exactly the opposite of what she was trying to convey in terms of the testimony. I'm this frail, fragile individual. I couldn't defend myself against this monster who's sitting on the other side of the room.
I
So
wonder, again, to tie it back to Meghan Markle, then how much, and I guess potentially, allegedly, maybe Blake Lively, if she's a narcissist, how they don't, they don't listen to people around them. So Elaine could have said till she's blue in the face, Amber, unbraid your hair. Just
correct.
come in. Stop painting your cheeks up like that, whatever it is, And she'd be
Right.
like, nope, I know better.
Right.
Same.
Right. Absolutely. Absolutely. Well,
Blake,
again,
stop making this a rom-com. Nope, I know better, that kind of thing, I wonder.
right. Well, we've heard that over and over and over again. I mean, every person on YouTube who comments about Meghan Markle refers to these allegations that she's difficult to work with. And one of the reasons she's difficult to work with is because she does not want to listen to anybody. And
Mhm.
therefore, you see the result. She's got right now, people are talking about she's up in Whistler and she's on TV all the time. She knew it. And her hair's a mess.
Oh,
And her clothes are a mess. She's wearing inappropriate clothing for the venue.
that's
And she's
right.
staying allegedly in a $5,000 a night hotel room, and the optics of it are all terrible.
That's
So,
true.
again, in the Blake Lively, Justin Baldoni, scenario, the exact same things are going to apply. It's like, okay,
You're
what
right.
do we think about this person relative to their behavior? It makes a
Mhm.
difference.
That's a good point, and I think it'd be better made if you brought out your $3,000 to $5,000 jacket, because I'm seeing different reports on how much Megan spent on that one jacket. It was like $3,000, I think. So if you brought out your $3,000 jacket and made that point in that, I'd believe you more.
Yeah, right.
Where's that at right now? You got it in the back somewhere?
Yeah, right, right. Sorry. Sorry to
So
disappoint.
I know. So ridiculous. All right. So there was one more question that somebody had asked you, and that was, this is a civil case, but can any criminal cases arise from this?
Well, it's entirely possible that
Mhm.
a criminal case can arise from a civil case, and we need look no farther than the Sean Combs, aka Diddy case in New York, which really has its genesis in the civil cases that were
Mhm.
filed by a number of people who made various allegations against him. And then all of a sudden, lo and behold, here comes the United States attorney saying, wait a minute, this is all really interesting, and we're seeing and hearing some things here that we want to dig into a little bit.
Mhm.
This is not the Blake Lively case is not comparable in that respect,
Sure. Yeah.
because I don't think there have been crimes committed
Mhm.
from everything that we know so far.
Right.
But it is possible for that to, for the snowball to get enough critical mass that all of a sudden, the criminal authorities, the the state's attorney, the U.S. attorney, whoever it is, the police, to get
Mhm.
involved. But I'm not saying that this is the type of case where there's going to be an allegation that there was some sort of criminal wrongdoing yet.
Gotcha.
Yet it
Sure.
might or might not happen. Nobody knows at
Mhm.
this point.
Huh. It'd be interesting to see
But
for sure.
I would say it's not very likely.
Mhm. For sure. Let's see. I think that's all the questions that the flock sent in. I'm just gonna look
Hmm.
at my paperwork as I do. Do you have any other thoughts on anything? Anything we didn't talk about that's on your mind, or you feel I
Well,
think that's
yeah. I
huh?
wanted to talk a little bit about this letter that was
Oh,
sent
yeah.
by Justin Baldoni's attorney
Okay.
to the judge. And they have these pretrial conferences where the parties come in and they talk about, any issues that are looming or outstanding or anything like that, because the judge would much rather hash all that stuff out in advance rather than have it, 2 weeks before trial, somebody's complaining about, so and so is not being cooperative or
Uh-huh.
whatever it is. Um, Blake Lively's, excuse me, um, Justin Baldoni's attorney,
Mhm.
Brian Friedman.
Yeah, I have a
How,
picture of him while you're talking. Go ahead. Uh-huh.
yeah,
Oh, that's not him. That's there you go.
there he is on the right side.
Mhm.
His reputation precedes him
Okay.
in a variety of ways. He's a very tenacious lawyer. He's a very well-respected lawyer, and he's had a a bunch of celebrity clients. At the same time, if you're on the opposite side of the courtroom from him,
Mhm.
you might not think so highly of him. And in fact, you might really not want to deal with him at all. So apparently there were conversations about depositions, which again are where you basically call people into a conference room, not a courtroom, a conference room well in advance of the trial. And you just kind of ask questions, and the rules of evidence are very much relaxed. And the whole point of it is to, in a lot of ways, it's a fishing expedition. There are certain things that you want to confirm or get a denial of, but what you're really hoping for is to get some information that will lead you down a path towards something else that might be very compelling for your client, or that might not be. I mean, I think that the information that you don't want to hear is of as much interest as anything else, because it might change your trial strategy, or, by which I mean you might decide, okay, well, maybe we should think seriously about settling this rather than actually going in front of a judge and a jury. So Blake Lively started the case. She's the plaintiff. On the first, she threw the first stone at Justin Baldoni. He went out and hired this attorney, Mr. Brian Friedman. All of a sudden, Blake Lively apparently realized that she didn't really want to deal with Brian Friedman in a deposition. So apparently this was communicated somehow, and Blake Lively's side of the case said, wait a minute, she started this. She doesn't get to pick and choose what lawyer is going to depose him. If she doesn't like Brian Friedman, well, too bad.
Too bad, yeah.
That's not an option. She should have thought of that before she filed this lawsuit. So the interesting thing about it is that Justin Baldoni's legal team sent a letter to the judge saying, hey, we understand that there's going to be some pushback because Blake Lively doesn't care for Justin Baldoni's lawyer, and she doesn't want to be deposed by him. And basically, we think this is baloney, which it is, because she doesn't get to pick and choose.
Exactly.
The crazy thing about it is that from most lawyers' perspectives, at least as they articulate them on YouTube, and Legal Bites did a great explanation of this, which I'll just paraphrase, and hope I can do her explanation justice. Basically, two things have happened. She has admitted to to Justin Baldoni's legal team that she doesn't like this lawyer. So I guarantee you, who is going to depose her when push comes to shove? It's going to be the guy.
Absolutely.
Because they know she's admitted that she's afraid of the guy.
Yeah.
So he's going to go in there and he's going to have his claws out, knowing full well that she's afraid of him. So he's going to really let her have it in the deposition, knowing that she does not care for him. So a very weird tactical decision.
Yeah.
The question then comes up, why in the world would she send a letter like that?
Exactly.
The only explanation that I have heard anybody offer is that she is allegedly such a narcissist that when her lawyers told her, you don't want to send a letter. If Brian Friedman deposes you, just go in there, sit there and take it. You won't like it. I've been deposed. A lot of people have been deposed. It is not any fun at all, believe me, to sit there and have somebody just ask you bizarre questions. And sometimes you're sitting there and you want to look at your lawyer and say, please object to this. Please defend me. And the lawyer doesn't do anything, either because they don't feel there's anything that can be done or because they're asleep at the switch. Anyway, she's going to have to go in there probably and be deposed by Brian Friedman. She's going to squirm. She's going to hate it even more than she normally would. And again, the question of why did it end up this way? Again, the prevailing theory seems to be she is such a narcissist that she told her lawyers, I don't want to be deposed by him, make it stop. And her lawyers probably said to her, no, you can't do that. Just suck it up and deal with it. And her response as a narcissist, allegedly, was, I don't care whether it makes good sense as far as legal strategy or not. Send the letter. And that's the letter that everybody has now seen, where she has basically said, I don't want to deal with this guy. So, I mean, a not only sort of nonsense, like, why in the world would you do that? There's that. And then there's also the tactical aspect of it. Like, you've really shot yourself in the foot
Yeah.
by firing off this letter.
Uh-huh.
So, because you've admitted that you're afraid of this guy, basically. Now, the only thing that might pop up, and we don't know that this will happen or not, but the only thing that might happen is, well, let's say there is some legitimate reason why. Let's say, again, allegedly, just for
Sure.
purposes of explanation,
Uh-huh.
let's say they were in a bar one time and he threw a glass at her and hit her in the head with it. Again, allegedly.
Sure.
Okay, that might have some relevance, but in the absence of some sort of explanation like that as to why she doesn't want to deal with him,
Yeah.
if she's afraid that, unless she's afraid that he's going to jump over the table and
Right.
and sock her
Uh-huh.
in the chin,
Right.
it's too late. You
Exactly.
did
Because
this to yourself.
otherwise, anytime, like, I don't, if you took me to court for something and you're a great attorney, I'd just say, "Oh, I can't talk to you. You know what I mean? Because you're too good." That's not a legal
Right,
reason.
right.
You're too good at this. I can't talk to you. Tough shit. You got to talk. There's just
Yeah,
no,
yeah.
there's no,
Right,
just the
right.
nerve just blows my brain. Short of finding out exactly like you said, he threatened her. You can't just say, "No, I don't want to talk to you." Tough. It's called being an adult. You have to talk.
Yes, exactly. And again, she's the one that started it,
Exactly.
and she's got, I'm sure that with all the funds that she has, that she's probably hired very competent and therefore very expensive lawyers. And
Yeah.
yet here's this whack job letter that's come out, and everybody's saying, how in the world did this transpire? Well, there's really only one explanation. She
Yeah.
demanded that it be sent, and you're supposed to zealously advocate for your client, which I'm
Mhm.
sure her lawyers are doing, just as his lawyers are doing. But at
Mhm.
the same time, at the end of the day, if the client directs you to do something, it's really hard to say no, if not impossible to say no, um, because the client's paying the bills.
Yeah.
Client's paying the
Oh,
bills.
the client's making you look like a jerk. It
Yeah.
makes the proverbial you, their attorney look like an idiot, even
Yes.
though the attorney did nothing wrong. They just followed the client's wishes. But oh man.
Right. Right. So
Oh,
I mean, that's a whole point of intrigue, and everybody's like, what is going on here? So
yeah.
if and when that deposition becomes public,
Uh-huh.
which it probably will, if this goes all the way to the goal line, to the end, um, it'll be really interesting to see what the dynamic is and to look at the body language. I mean,
Mm,
Jesus Enrique Rojas will have a field day with his body language analysis, and he
okay.
does a great job, by the way. If you haven't checked out his YouTube channel, I forget. I only remember his name, not his channel, but he does a great
Body
job
language
covering.
guy, I think is what he's
Yeah,
called.
I believe he has a couple of different. I
Yeah.
think he has two channels.
Oh, Royal Rogue too, I
Yeah,
think.
Royal Road, exactly. But he's going to have a field day with this,
I also have to
and
shout out Dylan from Winning Communication because I have him on all the time. He does body language. Yes.
yes,
Uh-huh.
yes. So this is going to be really interesting. Going to be
Yes.
very interesting, and we'll just have to wait and see what happens.
Yeah.
The unfortunate thing on these trials is you got to wait 13 months for this to get kicked off.
I
I
think
mean,
we'll go back and forth until then, but yes.
right, right. Well, it's just like the Diddy trial. Everything explodes up in front, and then everybody sort of hibernates until a month before trial, and then the whole thing kicks off again. I mean, so
Mhm.
that's the stage that we're in with Diddy. Is that the
Yeah.
lawyers are lawyering behind the scenes and getting ready for the game,
Mhm.
and we won't hear anything more about this until the game starts. The same thing is true in this case. This will all die down, and give it another month or two, and all of a sudden there'll be radio silence. We won't hear anything more about it. And then about a month or so before, I think you said basically a year from now, in
March.
February or March of next year, 2026, we'll start to hear stuff about, oh, well, here's where things stand, or yes, there's been a settlement, or no, there's not. We're going ahead full speed. It'll be interesting to watch. So,
Yeah, it will be, huh? The last question I have for you, and I just popped into my head, just circling back. Do you find it weird? And again, I am pro Justin Baldoni. Is it weird? And that might be a weird legal question, but is it weird that he put up that website, or do you just, in your opinion, is it just his way of like clapping back? I'm trying to make sense of that because it feels like it might tick off the judge a little bit and maybe shoot him in the foot, but maybe he needed to get his side out there. I don't know. What are your
well,
thoughts?
you're absolutely correct. And again, because of the nature of the conflict here, we're talking about the court of law. We're also talking about the court of public opinion. And you want to win in both, but at the same time, you can't try to win the court of public opinion, and in the process of doing so, irritate the judge because the judge worries that you are somehow perverting or adulterating the course of justice, the legal system. And that's why you have, these conversations. Again, in the Diddy case, we've seen talk back and forth about gag orders. And I think in this case, we've even seen some conversations about gag orders where the judge does not want people to have an unfair advantage, either because they're, as I said, adulterating the court of the process of justice, or the other thing, which is almost even worse, is that they're trying to influence the potential jury pool to have people come in with preconceived notions. Oh yeah, I know Justin Baldoni. He's the one that's got that big website out there, and yeah, I've read all of his stuff. Well, have you heard anything from the other side? Well, from the
Like,
the other team, Blake Lively. No, I haven't heard anything. Okay, well, all of a sudden now you've basically tainted a juror that is not going to be acceptable probably not going to be acceptable as a member of the jury. So, and the judge does not want that. Again, that's why they have gag orders that get put in place every once in a while. You'll see it in a high profile case. But at the same time, Justin Baldoni wants to be able to keep making movies. He doesn't want to sit around on his hands for the next 12 months. He wants to continue to, negotiate for, further, film projects and production projects and so forth. So again, it's complicated. You've got to walk that tightrope about making sure your reputation doesn't suffer permanent damage, but at the same time not irritating the judge with your extrajudicial antics and out on the sidewalk or in People magazine or anything else. And by the way, I'll just mention, since we've been talking about the Depp Heard trial, a good example of that would be, people might recall there was an occasion on which Amber Heard went into the courthouse in downtown Los Angeles, to file some sort of paperwork. And rather than take the celebrity exit through what I understand is the garage of the courthouse and get into an SUV with dark windows and so forth, what did she do? She walked out onto the sidewalk in downtown Los Angeles in full view of the TMZ and everybody else's cameras, and had her picture taken, which I think ended up on the cover of People magazine, if I'm not mistaken. And all of a sudden, guess what? What did that do for public opinion? Oh my gosh, Johnny Depp, he's a monster. He's a this, he's a that. Amber Heard, poor little thing, she couldn't defend herself. Blah 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 blah. Okay, well, I think she kind of, at the time that occurred, she won that round because, if you've got a black guy on the cover of People magazine, that's tough to fight off, because Johnny Depp's hands were tied behind his back effectively at that point. And it wasn't until later on that we heard about bruise kits, and we heard about everything else that everybody heard about in the Fairfax County Courthouse. So there's an art to it. There really is. And it's a very, very funky scenario when you're dealing with high-profile public figures,
Mhm.
celebrities, people whose ability to put food on the table or to buy their Maserati or whatever it is directly related to their reputation.
Mhm. That
And
makes
it's
sense.
hard enough in a Hollywood scenario to maintain your reputation and to maintain relevance under the best of circumstances. And that's
Mhm.
why you look at people like Taylor Swift, and it's or I mean, name your celebrity.
Sure.
The Tom Cruises, the Taylor Swifts, the Madonnas, the whoever it is,
Mhm.
the Dave Chappelles.
Yeah.
These are people that are perennially on the radar screen
Mm.
and are getting work, and it's absolutely remarkable that they're able to do that. To maintain a winning streak like that is incredible, and everybody else is desperately trying to make sure that they stay relevant and that they have a good reputation and so forth. And that's why there are these efforts, at
Mhm.
least they're on the part of Justin Baldoni, to make sure that he controls the narrative. But as I
Sure.
mentioned, you do it at your peril, because if you
Yeah.
irritate the judge, then you got a problem.
Yeah. Yeah, true. Gotcha. I guess as we wrap this up, did you have any final thoughts or anything we didn't discuss? Or you feel good about all this so far? Anything
Yeah,
else?
it's
You know?
it's it's going to be very interesting,
Mhm.
and this case did not become high profile because it was forced on anybody. It became high profile because it's fascinating and people have a genuine and understandable and legitimate interest in it.
Mhm.
And um, the chess match, the twists and turns that
Mhm.
evolve organically and so forth are going to be very interesting. And I guess the only other thing I would say in a closing thought again is to repeat the point that I made earlier, which was very easy to go into court, listen to an opening statement,
Mhm.
and just say, "Why are we here? This is a waste of time. This is a slam dunk. What's going on?"
Mhm.
And then the other lawyer stands up, and when they finish talking, you say to yourself, "Oh, gee, I didn't know about all that. Didn't see that coming. Maybe there's more here than I originally thought."
Mhm.
And I think the key is to maintain an open mind, because there will be tons of twists and turns. There will be palace intrigue. There will be a chess match,
Mhm.
and that's what's fun about the law, is that as that stuff all comes out and unfolds, then we all get to play along and uh, and keep track of it, and
That's true.
it's fun.
It is fun. It's interesting. I find it completely fascinating for sure. Um,
Yeah,
you have been so kind and generous with your time, and I'm going to put you on the spot for one last question that I just thought of.
sure.
I need to know, just in 30 seconds now, and just to put you on the spot, what are your thoughts on Invictus with Harry and Meghan? I have to ask you because you're here with me. What's going on? What are those two freaks up to?
Well,
That's
you know
not a
what?
legal opinion. Just what's your general personal opinion on that?
It's sad what's happening. I have to
Uh,
say that, and I say that from a humanist perspective.
yes. Uh-huh.
Um, they are human beings. They
Uh-huh.
have children.
Mhm.
They have family members, whether they speak to them or not. That's a whole other story, obviously, as we know. But um, I'm like so many other people. I don't wish them ill will,
Sure. Yeah.
but when they make jerks of themselves and when they go after other people,
Yeah.
it's really hard to not have a negative opinion of them,
Uh-huh.
and to point out the flaws in what they're doing.
Yeah.
I mean, the new hot word of 2025 is performative,
Yeah.
and so much of what they do looks so performative. And there have been so many conversations that everybody has had about the difference between the way that the two of them react to one another and feed off of each other versus the way that William and Catherine
Mhm.
react and feed off of each other. Um, you don't have to be a body language expert. You don't have to be a psychologist or psychiatrist to look at the two of them and to say something doesn't make sense
Yeah.
about their relationship. And then you have these little jabs that come out about what did Harry say in his opening remarks about, was it something about, just the way people are treated, or the way
Oh, yeah. Forced. I can't remember. I've heard so much crap since then, but yeah.
yeah. I mean, you just listen to that and you just think, and there's so much. I made the point to somebody the other day. When was the last time, Harry's always talking about the media and the risks of social media on children and so forth. Yet there's never a statistic mentioned. There's never research that's mentioned. There's never a name drop of so and so and so and so at, Cambridge University or Harvard or, the University of Central Kentucky, or, it doesn't matter. It's all seemingly based on his gut feelings, his
Frozen Todger, whatever, yeah.
yeah, and people just listen to that and they're like, you keep purporting to be an expert and you keep purporting to be a victim and you keep saying all of this stuff, and none of it makes any sense to casual watchers. And that only makes it more compelling to look at them and to say, okay, well, what's coming next? And this seemingly feigned affection that, Meghan, when she had her head yesterday or the day before on Harry's shoulder as they're sitting in the stands, I say seemingly feigned because maybe it is legitimate, but a lot of people look at that and they say, gosh, it just doesn't, my opinion of it is that it just looks off somehow. It's
It looks
just
like
not.
a mother and son, not a husband and wife.
Yes,
The way
yes.
she,
And
touches his face and, it's like something she saw in a bad movie and has decided, "This is my thing now."
yeah, yes. And, I mean, when the president of the United States, as was reported the other day, tells you that your spouse is a really unenviable, unlikable person, it's like, ouch, that really stings.
Yeah.
And, the other thing is, too, I suspect, this is just a conjecture and a guess on my part, but I suspect that Meghan and Harry look at the negative feedback that they get, for instance, on, on Ranker. I would encourage everybody to go to Ranker and see the people who are below Harry and Meghan on the list. It is remarkable. Just do a Google search for Ranker, and vote people up, vote people down. I mean, that whole site depends on individuals
Yeah,
voting. But
that's a good point.
Harry and Meghan probably look at Ranker and they say, "Oh, well, that's just a bunch of haters." All these people, what was it, the 91 or 89% of people who downvote the ratio when they got ratioed on the Netflix trailer
This is the
for her
90s,
cooking show.
yeah.
Those are all bots. Those are all haters. That's a smear campaign orchestrated by some YouTubers who are talking. They're obsessed with us and they just want to see us go down in flames and so forth. It's like, well, Meghan, you've got whatever it is. What is it? 1.4 million followers on Instagram.
Yeah.
Where were their votes on the Netflix trailer? And and by the way, the apparently the viewing numbers for the Polo series, from what I've read, never cracked the top 10 in any country where Netflix has a presence. I mean, and you think, like Argentina, for instance. I'm assuming Netflix is in Argentina. Harry's friend Nacho is from, and all these famous polo players are from Argentina. You would think people in Argentina would want to watch the polo series. Apparently, allegedly, they didn't. What does that tell you? It's like, at some point, somebody said to me one time, you're going to be criticized at different points in your life. Let's assume 75% of that criticism is bogus. It's not warranted. What about that other 25%? Are you saying that those people are just wrong? that they've misinterpreted you, it's really worth paying attention when people criticize you, taking account of it, and thinking about you. Nobody's forcing you to change who you are or how you behave or how you kiss your spouse on a public stage in Vancouver or any of that stuff. But there are nuggets of truth more often than not in any criticism that is levied against somebody, and you ignore it at your peril. Sometimes it is hate. And like I said, if you say 75% of this is just hate watching and people ranting and they're losers and they have nothing else to do, fine, convince yourself of that. But at the same time, chances are there's some people in there that are sending you a message and you're not listening to it, and you keep doing the same stuff over and over again. And again, it sort of gets back to the Blake Lively case. All your lawyers are telling you not to send that letter about who you want to depose you, but you're ignoring every ounce of wisdom that seasoned professionals who have a good reputation. You're ignoring all of that information.
Right.
Harry and Meghan, you're ignoring all of the feedback that you get. You only want to hear positive feedback, groupthink, Dunning-Kruger. People have trotted out every single possible explanation for why they continue to behave the way they do. And it's weird. It really is weird.
And then the other thing that just hit me is when we spoke offline just about scheduling today and trying to figure out schedules, and I'd asked you a question about Harry and Meghan. You had such a good analogy about. Yeah, do you remember it?
No.
Could you elaborate? Oh, you don't remember?
No, which
about
analogy?
The Titanic and the iceberg. Do you remember?
Oh, yeah. Yeah,
I didn't wanna. Yeah, you just did such a good job with it. I didn't end up saying it because I thought, oh, you're going to be on my show. I'll have you say it.
Yeah, basically the gist of it was Harry is the Titanic. All he had to do in his dating life was not run into the iceberg. All he had to do was get across the ocean.
The whole ocean.
The whole ocean, all the water that's available in the Atlantic Ocean. What did he do when he hooked up with Meghan?
Full steam ahead.
Full steam ahead, right into the iceberg. So,
and
again,
William was yelling, "Hey, iceberg, iceberg, iceberg!"
Yes, the dude was up in the top, ding, 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 ding. Iceberg right ahead. And turn the wheel. No, nope,
like,
sorry. Yeah, right. Right. Oh, it'll be okay. We only had a glancing blow. And again, that's just opinion about what happened.
Sure.
Some people obviously think Meghan is the greatest, and Harry is the next Albert Einstein. Great, more power to you. But
don't drive a car because you're real dumb if you think that.
Yeah.
Don't drive a boat.
So all he had to do is get across the ocean to New York. But oops, what did he do? He ran straight into the iceberg. All the ocean that was available, all the women that would have probably loved to have had a relationship with him. He had Cressida, he had Chelsea. Great. Something happened there that
they got smarter. Yeah.
I guess.
All he had to do.
Here's the thing too. You know what? I don't envy. I mean, Prince William had a torture doesn't seem like the right word, but he had a rough go of it with Princess Catherine. Can you imagine the mess he would have been in if at the end of 8 years of a relationship, she had said, you know what, I just can't do this.
Yeah, sure.
And here's a guy who's going to be the next king of England. He's got to have some offspring. And this woman that I love dearly, who's I've dated for 8 years, all of a sudden she said, no, I can't go through with this. What a disaster that would have been.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, it's not an enviable position. I mean, dating and relationships are hard enough without being, part
So
of a
much
royal
pressure.
family,
Yeah.
1,000-year-old tradition and all of that kind of stuff. So I get it. It's hard, but at the same time,
So many options. And I'm
yes,
not and this is what bugs me. I don't just blame her. He's very much a part of this. He's not a, like he can make his decisions and he made that decision. So
yes, but
iceberg straight ahead. Yeah.
yeah, they're both equally, I think, culpable
Mhm.
for it, whatever. And as we've talked about too,
Mhm.
when he wrote his book, Spare, you can't tell me that she didn't read it.
A
You can't,
million percent.
you can't tell me that. In the
Mhm.
same way that you can't tell me that she walks out of the house looking the way she does with her multi-thousand-dollar outfits on that fit horribly, that are wrinkled, that the pant legs are dragging on them through the mud and
Mhm.
so forth. Um, that he hasn't said to her, or at least tried to say to her, "Hey, do you really want to wear that?" I mean, that's just what normal couples do.
Yeah,
You
sure.
look, you look great. You
Uh-huh.
you you give praise,
Uh-huh.
or you give um, correction in the gentlest way
Sure.
possible,
Uh-huh.
without causing tears and waterworks and meltdowns and crying fits and
Uh-huh.
dripping mascara and the whole thing. So anyway, the two of them are a team. I
Mhm.
can't believe that that they're not equally responsible for each other's misery that is in large part self-inflicted.
I think so too. I know it. It's fun. I shouldn't say it's funny to watch, but it's kind of funny to watch at this point. It's a hell of their own making, honestly.
Oh, absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely, yes.
Mhm.
They're their own worst enemies in so many ways, it seems.
Absolutely. It's showing all over their faces now. Crazy. Well,
Yeah.
John, again, thank you for everything. Thank you for your time. Any other thoughts as we wrap this up? You feel good about everything?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. I think so. And again, I mean, just to reiterate what we said at the beginning,
Yeah.
we're talking with only limited information.
Yeah,
We're
sure.
giving opinions.
Mhm.
We're talking about allegations.
Mhm.
In these court documents, even in the printed documents that we've seen, and the correspondence that we've seen from the
Mhm.
lawyers to the judge and so forth. A lot of allegations, a lot of speculation.
Yeah.
Nothing is set in stone. We're not talking about known facts here,
Mm.
and everybody should just remember that and keep an open mind, because
Yeah.
the worst thing that, as I sort of said at the very outset,
Mhm.
it's difficult to say to a client, you lost, but the interest of justice was served.
Mhm.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, of
Every client wants to win. There's no
course.
question about that. Nobody
Mhm.
wants to hear, um, yeah, you lost, but the the fates worked out
Mhm.
correctly.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, you have to keep an open mind, and you have to realize that somewhere somewhere in the midst of all these allegations is some truth.
Yeah.
We just don't know where it is yet.
I actually wonder if this will end up playing into a bigger picture of having to more firmly spell out things like how many kisses can you give, how many hugs, where do hands go, things like that, if it'll add to a bigger conversation.
Well, presumably, all that stuff is spelled out,
I would
and
think. Yeah.
there've already been references to things that were understood
Yeah.
allegedly to
Uh-huh.
be the ground rules for these scenes, and yet all of a sudden somebody's
Minds are
not happy.
changed. Yeah, absolutely. John, how can we support you further? Just your Instagram is the best way to do that?
Yeah, I think that's probably fine at this point, and that's really kind of the only way to do it. But
Yeah.
I'll just encourage people, as I said, to look and listen for some announcement that I've started a channel and talking about DC, and probably talking about some legal stuff as well. So that'll be forthcoming. And I just want to say again, as I said at the outset, I'm really grateful for the support and the positive
Yeah.
feedback and the comments and the opportunity to talk with you, Jen.
Yeah.
I feel like in some ways I'm an ambassador for the profession. And And I like to help people understand that the legal system is not voodoo or black magic, or it's not a roll of the dice. There's a rhyme and a reason to it. There are rules, there are procedures, and things unfold the way they do for a reason. It's not just arbitrary. It's not just random chance. And I'm very comforted by that, incidentally. I mean, I know a lot of people look at the legal system and the law, and especially right now with everything that's happening politically on the national level in the United States, and everybody's saying, "Oh, well, some judge has got to step in and put a stop to this," and maybe that'll happen, maybe it won't. It'll just be interesting to see. And like I said, the legal system is it's not perfect, but it's the best that we can do.
Yeah.
Because believe me, people have thought for many years about, how can we improve the legal system? Well, we're kind of tapped out on that, and we do the best we can, and we do a lot better than a lot of other places.
True. Yeah. True. Interesting. Well, thank you so much, John. I appreciate it. I look forward to. I'm going to be bringing you back. As more, if you're up for it, more of this stuff comes out. I'd love to I'd love to have a continuing dialogue about this case. I just
absolutely, yeah, happy to do it anytime.
We'll do that, and I'm sure Harry and Meghan will do some crazy stuff that I'll bring you back in for anytime Harry's in court.
Yeah, there you go. There you go.
Thank you so much for your time, and we'll talk to you again soon. Bye-bye.
Okay, take care. Bye.
Oh my gosh, guys, that was so good. I love talking about that. I think it's such an interesting case. I can't wait to see what comes out of all this. I want to say again a huge thank you to John Witherspoon for your time, for your kindness, and answering all of the Flock's questions, for explaining a way where we can all understand it. It just means so much to all of us. I appreciate you. And guys, if you don't already follow him on Instagram, we're trying to build that up, and I'm going to keep bugging him to start a channel. As soon as he does here on YouTube, I will let you guys know. Hopefully he will get on that. But thank you guys so much for being here. I appreciate it. It means the whole wide world to me. Please let me know your comments, your thoughts on all this down below. I can't wait to read about it, what you thought. If you want us to keep going with this, let me know. And as always, thank you, Flocker, so much for being here. You mean the world to me, and I cannot wait to bring you more stuff like this. I truly hope you have the best day, and I'll talk to you again soon. Bye-bye.